Okay, so what we want to do here is we want to think about the now Statement of Purpose in 1966, and then compare it back to the Declaration of Sentiments in 1848. You've got the Declaration of Sentiments in your text, but you also have it in your outline. It would be the lecture on 19th century reforms, is where you have that document as well. Since I'm looking at my computer, it's easier to look at the book and talk about them together in that way. And so let's first think about the ways in which these two documents are different. And so right from the get-go, we can see a difference with the Statement of Purpose, and that is its connection of working more like visibly alongside men. So right from the beginning, they say, "We, men and women, do hereby constitute ourselves the National Organization of Women." And then at the end, they say that we hope to develop confidence in our ability in partnership with men. Now, in the Declaration of Sentiments, men attended the conference, men signed it. Remember, in the film you watched, Douglas was a key supporter of women getting the right to vote. And it was kind of his, like, saying, like, women really need this, that helped kind of propel others to agree with it. So men were certainly involved, but that if you look at the document, it more sets up men as being in opposition to women, and you don't really see that partnership in the Declaration of Sentiments in the same way that you do in the Statement of Purpose. Now, another thing that is different is if you read through the Statement of Purpose, they directly mention the Equal Employment Opportunities Commission, which we just said was key with Title VII and kind of spurring this group of women to activism. But they say nearly one-third of the cases brought before the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission during the first year have dealt with sex discrimination. The Commission has not made clear its intention to enforce the law with the same seriousness on behalf of women as of other victims of discrimination. Many of these cases were Negro women who are the victims of double discrimination of race and sex. And so that too is a difference. Right? In the Declaration of Sentiments, there's no recognition of women of color. And in fact, we had Sojourner Truth in her anti-women speech, like saying, "Hey, don't forget about me, right? I'm a woman too." She had to remind white women. And so here, there is an acknowledgement of the double discrimination, and actually, oftentimes even more, that women of color face. Now, as you'll see, the film clip that you're going to watch about now, the organization doesn't still really address the concerns of women of color. You know, like one of the things these women want are access to jobs and equal pay, and women of color are like, I wish I had the leisure to not have a job. Like, I wish I could stay home and only, have that MRS degree. I wish I had access to college, right? And so there's a disconnect. But again, the difference in this document is at least there's an acknowledgement of it where we didn't see it before. That said, there's a whole lot of similarities in the things that they're asking for. Now, the big difference is we have the vote, right? So there's nothing there about the vote, but they say they want access to top professions, government, industry, churches. They want access to those positions in labor unions and education. They don't have access to even some of the jobs they say that are traditionally seen as like feminine jobs. They're losing access to those jobs as well. It says women are losing ground in things that are once thought to be women's fields. They write about a false image of women in the media, which was alluded to in the Declaration of Sentiments. And that, again, they don't have access to some of those top jobs. So in that way, we see a lot of similarities to that Declaration of Sentiments. One other connection but difference is that last bit. They say here, we are similarly opposed to all policies and practices in church, state, college, factory, or office which in the guise of protectiveness not only denies opportunity but also fosters in women self-contempt. And then again, they write, women will do most to create a new image of women by acting now, by speaking out on behalf of their own equality, freedom, and human dignity, not in pleas for special privilege. And so think about that for just a moment. Those two bits there. The guise of protectiveness and pleas of special privilege. This is where that we're going to start to see generational differences in these waves. And so this is a generational difference. Remember, older women say Eleanor Roosevelt. She's not alive anymore by 66, but we talked about like the Triangle Factory Fire and women's activism in reform and the Women's Trade Union League. And we said that one of the things they won was protective labor legislation, and that was seen as like a yay, like a good thing, right? But from a modern perspective, protective labor legislation is seen as suggesting that women are somehow need protection, that they're special, and that they aren't equal. And so this generation of women's rights activists want to get rid of that protective labor legislation, but an older generation of women, again, Eleanor Roosevelt's a little too old for us, but certainly like her, that generation or just below her, they see this as like a boon and like a good thing, and so there's going to be a disconnect here. We're going to see that generational difference happen again a lot in the next wave, between the second and the third wave. There's going to be that generational difference too, in terms of how words are used and how like identities are understood. So again, that's a connection between the two waves, but also a difference. I was trying to think if I don't think the film mentions that. So if you have questions about that, be sure and ask those in the discussion board. Take care.